Hello, and welcome to Easy English Interviews, the podcast for English language learning. My name is Chris Kent. I'm an associate professor of English as a second language in Japan. And in this podcast, I interview interesting people in easy English, so English students can practice their listening comprehension skills. Please enjoy listening to the interviews, and if you would like to check your comprehension, please look at the questions in the podcast episode notes. Or go to kjkentmsed.substack.com and click on the post for this episode. There, you can subscribe to my Substack and receive email notifications whenever a new interview is released. インタビューを楽しみください。理解度を確認したい場合は、ポッドキャストノートの質問を見るか、URL kjkentmsed.substack.com にアクセスして、このエピソードをクリックしてください。そこで私のサブスタックをサブスクライブして、新しいインタビューがリリースされるたびに電子メール通知を受け取ることができます。Okay, and now for the Easy English Interview. Okay, today we are here with my good friend, Ernie Izumi. Thanks for doing this today, Ernie.
Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, Ernie and I go way back. He's a fellow Canadian, and he has lots of interesting things to talk about. So let's get started right away. Okay, so my first question for you, Ernie, is why did you choose to come to Japan? And can you explain a little bit about your story, about how you came to live and work here?
Sure, definitely. So your listeners can't really see me, but I'm Japanese by blood. So my parents were both born in Japan. They were raised in Japan, and they grew up over here. And they moved to Canada about 50 years ago. And that's where I was born and I was raised. And I always had this want to go to Japan to learn about my roots. And I visited when I was a young child a couple times. But as I grew older, I really wanted to live in the country. And a mutual friend of ours, Brad, he actually was living over here and I knew him from high school. And he told me about how Japan was great. It was great for him. And I had a couple other friends that were living over here. So I decided, well, I might as well make the jump over. Came over to Japan. It was supposed to be 6 months. Mm-hmm. It's been 19 years now. So it got a little long. But that's pretty much the story of how I got over here. I ended up staying because of I got married, I started a business, and a number of different reasons why I decided to stay for this long. But that's basically the story of my journey over here.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty common story where people come to try something out for a short time and then they start to become part of the community, and then it's harder and harder to leave, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I know in my case, it was always, okay, if next year is worse than the past year, then I'll go home. But every year got better and better, so you keep staying, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So what did you study before you came here to Japan?
So I was studying marketing management. So I was in a business school. So I was learning about how to advertise, how to set up storefronts, learning about small businesses and things like that. Mm-hmm. It's interesting that I got into education about the same time, though, because while I was in university, I was also volunteering a lot. I was volunteering at schools and also working part-time at daycare programs and summer camps. And I loved it. I loved working with kids, and I got to work with special needs kids quite a bit. So I ended up, when I came to Japan, that really was interesting for me to be able to come over to teach, even though that wasn't my background, my educational background. And now, fast forward 20 years, I use my marketing management a lot more than my education background, which is
Right.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Why is that? What is it that you're doing now?
so right now I do a number of different things, but I'm the CEO of a company called the Maple Leaf Education Group. And so within that group, we have three international programs. We have two international preschools and an international elementary school. And basically with these programs, they are 100% in English. And the students come to our schools every day. They're not English schools, or they're not just English schools. We teach everything. In our elementary program, we teach a little bit of Japanese too, as well, for those students. And we also have an overseas program. So we do overseas programs in Canada, Saipan, and a couple places in Canada, in Toronto and in Vancouver. And we're looking at starting up a couple more in New Zealand and Australia in the future too, as well. Obviously, with COVID, we haven't been able to do much there. And now I also have a part ownership in a restaurant in Canada too, as well, a Japanese restaurant.
That's great. Yeah, you must be
Yeah.
very busy.
I try to keep busy. I like to keep my mind occupied.
So,
Yeah.
in the same kind of theme there, is there something you can tell me about the good parts and the bad parts of your job and what you're doing?
Sure. Yeah. I love my job. I really do. It's stressful. It is incredibly stressful. So that's definitely one of the bad things about it. I work with a lot of people. We have about 40 or so employees here in Japan, and they are all coming from different cultures and different backgrounds. And there are Japanese people, but there are people from, we've got people coming from the States, from Canada. We've got people coming from Brazil and Costa Rica, a number of different countries. And it's always interesting to try to find that balance for all of our employees to make sure that everything is working well together. So that can be really stressful. There's a lot of responsibility involved too, as well. But the one thing I love, all of this is worth it because I have a lot of freedom in what I do. I'm basically doing what I want to do. So if I want to start a program in Canada, or if I want to start a new camp, we just started a camp program, an overnight camp program in Japan. I wanted to do that. It was interesting to me, and I got the chance to do that. So I have a lot of freedom with that. And it's stressful, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun. I really get to do what I'm passionate about.
Yeah, that's great. You know what they say, find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life, right?
Exactly. There are some days I feel like I'm not working, and I think to myself, am I getting paid to actually be, talking to these people or interacting with these people? It's a lot of fun.
So let's turn back the clock a little bit, and I'd like to ask you about when you were younger, like a child.
Yeah.
Did you have any ideas of what you wanted to be when you grew up?
It's funny. The earliest memories of what I wanted to be, I wanted to be the Prime Minister of Canada. I'm not sure why. I had this want of being the Prime Minister. It's a very specific job, but I wanted to be the Prime Minister of Canada, the leader of Canada. So as a young child, I remember telling my parents that I really need to learn French. I really need to get good at French so I can become the Prime Minister of Canada. Over the years, that changed. I wanted to get into business a lot as I grew older. In high school, we had the chance to take classes on business, and specifically, I took classes in marketing. And I took classes in business law in high school. We had a lot of different courses, but I found those so interesting. So I really wanted to get into some sort of business when I grew up, and I got a chance to do that.
Great. Okay. Well, I can see a couple bicycles in the background there. So can you tell me a little bit about your hobbies and what you do for fun these days?
Yeah, sure. I'm getting old. So as I get older, I have a need to exercise more.
Hmm.
So those are the bicycles in the background that are actually collecting some dust. They're not moving as much as they should be. But I am an avid gym goer. I like to go to the gym a lot. So I wake up every morning at about 4 o'clock in the morning and just go to the gym, go running, weightlifting, things like that. That's my main hobby. I love spending time with my daughter. She's 10 years old. And so a lot of my interests, a lot of my hobbies are actually what her hobbies end up being, or she influences me and she
Right.
tells me what she wants to do. And I end up liking the things that she wants to do. Yeah. So we like going on bike rides. We like walking the dogs, things like that. Yeah. And going on hikes. Yeah. A lot of outdoorsy things.
Good. Okay. I'd like to, focus a bit more on Japan now. Can you tell me,
Sure.
your favorite places to visit in Japan?
Yeah. Nagano's up there. It's Nagano Prefecture is very much up there on the top of my list. When I first came to Japan, I actually lived in Nagano Prefecture.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I ever told you that. We
Mm.
met in Shizuoka,
Right.
but yeah, right before that, I was living in Nagano Prefecture in a little town called Ina City,
Mm-hmm.
down south. But one of my top places to visit right now is Karuizawa. I love Karuizawa. I go there
Yeah,
quite a
it's
bit.
beautiful. Yeah.
It's beautiful. I love that it's a small town, but it has so much to offer.
Mm.
There's so many different types of shops. There's a lot of culture there. I really love it there. I always find myself going up to Hokkaido a lot too as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I go up to Sapporo quite a bit. And maybe I'm up there once a year at least visiting the city. Yeah, those are probably my top two places.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I've lived in a lot of places in Japan. Right now I live in Mie Prefecture. And before that, I lived in Aichi Prefecture in Nagoya. And I lived in Shizuoka before that and Nagano before that. So all of those places have a special place in my heart. I
Mm-hmm.
really love those cities too as well. Ina, Shizuoka City, Nagoya, and now I live in Matsuzaka.
Yeah, well, that's great. Oh, now you're in Matsuzaka, right? So,
Yeah.
I hear it's pretty famous for beef.
It is. And that's why I need to exercise.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of good beef here, and it's not as expensive as it is for everyone else, for us local Matsuzaka people.
Hmm. Okay, so my next question might relate to that, but do you have any specific part of Japanese culture that you like a lot? Like you said, your parents are from Japan, so maybe you have a different idea than the average Westerner who goes to Japan. So what part of the culture do you like?
Oh, I love, Japanese culture. There's a lot of things that I do enjoy, but it's not necessarily culture, but I love the food here.
Hmm.
And I love the culture around food,
Right.
in Japan. Everything's a specialty here. In Canada, going to a Japanese restaurant meant that you go to a restaurant and they have everything. They have udon there, they have soba there, they have sushi there, they have, chicken
Hmm.
dishes, they have, everything is just in one shop. But when you come to Japan, you go to a restaurant that only sells tonkatsu, or you
Right.
go to a restaurant that only sells ramen, and there's so much specialty behind that too as well. I really enjoy that part of the culture, and even now, so I partly own a restaurant in Vancouver, like I mentioned, that specializes only in Japanese karaage. That's
Hmm.
the main thing that they sell. It's just
Right.
one type of dish. So they do it really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Japanese culture is great about that.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about finding something you do well and then using that to make your living, right? The one thing you can do rather than being too diversified, I think might be a good idea.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And, yeah, Japanese people really do take that. I think that's not just in the food culture, but that's in a
Mm.
lot of, things in Japanese culture, is that people really take things, their one skill, their one talent very seriously, and they try very hard at trying to improve that.
Hmm.
And I have a lot of respect for that in Japan for sure.
Okay, great. I was going to ask you about family, but we already kind of touched on that. So instead, I'll skip ahead to what your plans are for the future, if you have any. Of course you do, but
Yeah. I hope so. I hope I'm still living tomorrow. That's every day is a new day. Um, So my future, well, right now we have the two preschool programs and an elementary program here in MIE, and we plan on building another preschool, and that's for the business side of things. And for my family side of things, my daughter, I have only one daughter, and she's, the most important thing in my life. So in the near future, I will be moving with her out to a bigger city soon in the next couple of years so she can attend junior high school at an international school. Mm-hmm. So she's always been going to international schools all of her life since she was 2 years old. And she's not very Japanese. She's very much a Canadian child.
Right.
Yeah, she doesn't think like a Japanese person. She doesn't act like it. Her hobbies and her interests are all Western. She likes watching American TV and things like that. So she decided that she wants to go into international school. And unfortunately, we don't have an international junior high school in MIE. So I'm not going to build it. I don't, I'm not planning on building it.
Right. Don't have the time right now.
I don't have I don't have the years in my life, I think, to build a junior high school. So I think that would be really difficult. So we are planning on moving out there to probably Nagoya, not too far away from where I live right now. So I can still work from Nagoya too as well, which would be nice. But that's the near future. That's about it. I think I don't have a lot of big plans for the future and try to take things easy and take things day by day.
Yeah, one day at a time kind of idea. I like that very much too. My last question for you is just because this podcast is for students, do you have any advice for students who are studying English? Some ideas you think might help them?
Yes, 100%. I would say really find something you're interested in and study about that in English. So for myself, I speak Japanese every day now for my job, and also just conversational Japanese. A lot of my friends are Japanese, and one thing that's interesting is that I've never studied the language. I've never once studied the language. And growing up as a child, my parents never never made me speak in Japanese. Sometimes they would speak Japanese to me. But I would never really speak any Japanese. So I didn't have any understanding of the language. But the one thing that got me started in learning Japanese is I love cars. And I would always pick up car magazines in Japanese, and I would learn how to read the kanji of very car specific kanji, and that's how I picked up the language. And then beyond that, I really like to meet people. I like making friends, and so because of that, I just learned to speak Japanese because I enjoyed socializing with different people in the language, and I picked up the language really quickly, very quickly, doing that. So if I were to give your students any advice, I would say find something you love to do and just do it in English. Go meet some people that speak English and practice, immerse yourself in the language. And it'll come naturally over time if you do something you love.
Oh, okay. That's very good advice, and something that I think everyone can do, but not only do, but I think that if you are learning about something else while you're using English, what happens is you don't think about it, and it gives you the freedom to kind of just explore without having to focus on grammar or without having to focus on vocabulary. Instead, you're focused on something that you'll never get tired of. So that's great advice, I think.
Yeah, definitely. That's very specific how you explained it, and I think that's a great way to explain it too as well.
Good, great. Well, I'd like to thank you, Ernie. We don't have any more time today, and I know you are an extremely busy man, so I'll let you go. But this was a lot of fun, and if we have a chance in the future, I hope you might be free for another chat, maybe if I do a second season of my podcast. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I'd love to come up to Nagano and visit you personally and hopefully sit down with you again.
Yes, that's what we'll do. Next time, let's do this in person.
Yes, definitely. Thanks for working with my schedule today.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Ernie Izumi, and I would like to say thank you very much for listening. Also, I hope that you will try the comprehension questions when you have free time, so you can check your listening ability in English. And please, if you would like to be notified by email whenever a new podcast is up, please become a subscriber at kjkentmsed.substack.com. That's kjkentmsed.substack.com. If you become a paid subscriber there, you can read transcripts of the interviews and check your comprehension answers. You can also check out Easy English Interviews now at easyenglishinterviews.locals, that's LOCALS.com. You can also watch videos on YouTube. Just search for Easy English Interviews podcast. All right. Thank you again, and see you next time when we will speak with another interesting person. Bye-bye from Easy English Interviews.